soul of a wildflower. Sacred soul of a wildflower. Sacred soul of a wildflower. To thine own self must be true. Hello wolves, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In episode 2 of my writings, today's title is The Portrait, and the card that we have from the tarot deck for the theme of today's piece is the 10 of Cups. And the 10 of Cups talks about celebration, family, emotional fulfillment. It's actually funny because in the first episode, the card that we got was the 9 of Cups, and today we have the 10 of Cups. And I feel like that's just very reflective of the elevation in emotional stability and intelligence that I'm having as I heal and realize and recognize and actualize and even change my perspective of things that have kept me feeling trapped and stagnant and stuck and in a reversed 10 of Cups energy. How this works is, before each episode, I shuffle and I ask Spirit to show me a card that represents the piece that I'm going to be sharing in the video. And so that's what you see here, and that's what you saw in last episode with the 9 of Cups. Let's get into the piece. It's currently 12:41 a.m. and it's simultaneously my mom's birthday. In this moment, I'm feeling many big emotions, one being sadness. I know this may sound a certain way, but if you had my vision, you'd see. As of a couple years ago, my relationship with my mom has been forever changed, and it currently is strained deeply beyond repair. It's so torn down, ruptured, and beheaded, and there is no mend because what was a lie, an illusion. A portrait painted with lies, signed by my current tears and childhood innocence. If I'm being honest, which I am, I don't even know who she is anymore, and I don't think I ever genuinely even knew her. Just the her she wanted me to see in the painting that she independently created, despite my feelings. I cry in tears of grief as I write this because I recognize this morning. This isn't my first rodeo, not when it comes to my relationship with and to my mom. It just hits like a wave that I want to resist, but never truly can every time. I used to think that my mom was on my side. I used to think she had my back and loved me for me. But I realized very quickly as I started to claim my independence that what I was perceiving was a fairy tale. What I actually existed in was a box, decorated with codependency, lined with enmeshment, and taped in control. Manipulated is what I was. I was the favorite. The good one, the innocent one, until I could no longer be mentally controlled and emotionally abused. Now I am difficult, crazy, mentally unstable, and something to worry about. Except what this really means is that I'm brave now. I'm free now. I'm standing up for me now. When people are afraid and insecure, you never realize the depth of emptiness they must be experiencing until you see the lengths of which they'll go, the lengths of which they'll travel to hide. God has been telling me the truth for a while now, but denial has been gnawing at me. I used to think I only had daddy issues until I realized that mother wounds exist. As you can imagine, things began to make sense. Covert narcissism is tricky, but the signs and the subtleties never go away. This feels like Mother's Day, but different. I've been grieving my old mom and trying to find perspective for my real one. Conversations, we've had many, but it's like speaking two different languages, operating in two different realities under two different values. I'm angry. I'm resentful. I'm sad. I'm covered in sorrow. Improving upon the perspective in my heart is my only remedy. Ignorance exits and grief enters. A cyclical unraveling takes place, forcing me to find acceptance in what my ego feels unacceptable. It's 1:31 a.m. and tomorrow is my mom's birthday. I don't know how to feel. I just know that I do. In the morning, reality will awaken me again, and who knows what I'll feel. All I know is that I will. And there lies sparks of gratitude with a signature of permission. And so I'm going to share with you all the things that I underlined in this piece of writing and give you a bit of a explanation, backstory as to what I was experiencing here and what was really happening. So in this piece, I'm talking about how it's my mom's birthday and it is, the beginning times, right? 12:41, the beginning times of her birthday, right? So her birthday just literally got here. And when the clock hit midnight, I felt a sense of stress come over me. I felt a sense of anxiety come over me because at midnight on my birthday, she came to my room and she sang me happy birthday and she seemed so excited, which was really weird to me because I'm just like, we don't even have that connection. So for you to even do that right now is kind of not doing what like it's supposed to be doing. Although it was a sweet gesture that I appreciate, it's also just like, it lacks meaning. It lacked meaning. And so I was very confused. But so her birthday came and I had all these anxiety thoughts of like, oh, what if I don't do the same thing she did for me? Like, what is she going to say? Like, what is she going to do? Worried about that control, worried about something being taken away, worried about some sort of penalty, some sort of manipulative game being thrown at me because I didn't do what she did for me and her seeing it as some sort of, battle or fight. And, these are not normal thoughts to have. But when you have a mother who is not one-minded, and no, she's not being diagnosed with anything, but when you have a mother that's not one-minded and you can tell that sometimes she's one way and sometimes she's another way, right, it can be very hard to know what's right, quote unquote, and what's wrong, and what'll happen if you do this and what'll happen if you do that, and what they'll take is this and what they'll take is that. And if you have any family members or anyone around you with traits of narcissism, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. And so that's why here, I write like, this may sound a certain way, but if you had my vision, you'd see it's like, if you were in that moment with me, you would understand. If you've experienced this at all in any sort of way with anyone, right? This sort of manipulative, controlling, weird dynamic with anyone, you would understand, right? And if you have and you do and you're watching this, I see you and I honor you, because it really is such a truly confusing and mind-boggling experience. But so what I underlined here is, in this moment, I'm feeling many big emotions. I have really big emotions, and I feel like my whole life they have been undermined, they've been demeaned, they've been belittled, they've been seen, especially by my family, and not every single family member, but they exist, you know what I'm saying? They see it as a lick, they see it as something to make fun of, as something to, laugh at, as something to minimize and sort of look at like, stop being so sensitive. We've all heard that, especially coming from these dysfunctional dynamics. It's like, you're so dramatic, right? Don't be so emotional, like don't be so serious. It's always a belittling and a demeaning and putting down of emotions, and even emotional individuals like myself, right? There's always this level of like trying to make me feel lesser because I have big emotions. Even with my mom too, you think like, and that's what a mother wound is, right? You think like your mother would be, nurturing and soft and loving and caring, and that's part of the grief. But like, actually, that's not what it is. And it's not necessarily a fault of her own. Again, it's generational. It's part of the dysfunction that I am part of breaking, right? But it's also just like, damn, But if you had my vision, you'd see. And that's what I mentioned in the beginning. If you had my vision, if you were there with me in the moment, you would understand. And I gave a little bit of backstory, so maybe you do see the vision, right? But it's that thing where it's like, you had to be there to know, right? You had to have experienced it to know. You had to have been in my shoes to see it. I know sometimes we may feel like we're translating stories and we're telling things and we don't understand how to directly translate exactly what we are experiencing to people, and they may not get the vision, but it's not for them to necessarily get, right? It's really for us to own and understand and dissect and realize and actualize for ourselves. And that comes to not just vision in like, emotional situations, but just in life. When God gives you a vision, it's not necessarily meant for everybody to understand, right? It's you and him, right? It's not a group project. And I've learned that as well, dealing with this familial, I was going to say family, but this familial dysfunction. It is currently strained, deeply beyond repair. Our relationship with my mom is really strained. I don't really have a relationship with any of my family members, if I'm being honest, but like with my mom, it's strained a lot. It's like there's a rope and it's just so twisted and muddled, and you can't just untangle it. You know how a necklace is just so tangled that you can't even untangle it because it's just too tangled. Like, you have to get a new necklace. Like, that's where my relationship with my mom is at. It's just like the rope and the necklace and the rope and just any string, it's just too tied. It's too ruptured. It's too it's not fixable. It's not fixable. And there is no mend, because what was a lie. Anything built on lies cannot be sustained. Anything built on lies cannot be continued to be built upon. Anything built on lies will eventually fall, and it will eventually show itself, right? And by that I mean the truth will come out, the truth will unveil itself. I cry in tears of grief as I write this, because I recognize this morning grief can be so heavy. And throughout healing journeys, I'm sure you understand, if you're on the healing journey, but also if you've grieved at all, you understand how grief feels. And grief, it's funny because it's not just about somebody being dead physically, it's also about spiritually, right? And that's how I feel my relationship with my mom, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, but even physically. But I mean, not in a way if she's like passed away, but like in just a way of like, you can tell there's nothing really there when we are in the physical together. But like mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, we can experience grief of people, of relationships, of connections, of what used to be. And sometimes we go through many levels of this grief before we really can recognize and accept that person is gone. That relationship is gone. What you thought was is no longer, right? And so in this piece, in this moment, as I say, you know, I cry in tears of grief as I write this, because I recognize this mourning is something I felt before. And like I say, this isn't my first rodeo. It just hits like a wave that I want to resist, but never truly can every time. You know how sometimes you just want to resist your emotions, you just want to push them away. You just want to push all the grief away and all the pain away because it's just so heavy and it's just so rough to deal with. But you can't. It's all coming out, and you can't escape it. You try to run, it's going to follow you. It's just like the beach, you know, the wave's going to come whether you're ready or not, and you can't stop a wave. You can move yourself, but you can't stop the wave. You can prepare, but you can't stop the wave. Nothing's stopping the wave. And that's kind of what grief feels like. When it comes up, it's ready to come up and it's ready to come out. You cannot stop it. And I didn't really want to stop it, but at the same time, it was very painful. Truth, as I mentioned in the first episode, can be very painful. But it's necessary. It really is. Mourning is necessary. Not suffocating yourself with your pain is necessary. Acknowledging your pain is necessary. So give yourself space to mourn. And know that you are held deeply in your mourning. And you are not alone in it. But I realized very quickly as I started to claim my independence that what I was perceiving was a fairy tale. My relationship with my mom, it's like once I started to be independent, once I started to do my own thing, though she didn't agree with my decisions, right? That's what she says. That's what my family says. They say they don't agree with my decisions. But really, that's not it. You know? That's really not it. It's deeper than that. And so, you know, when I started to claim my independence, regardless of my decisions, it's like I was just abandoned. You know? Nobody supported me. Like if they did support me, it was breadcrumbs. It wasn't what I deserved. It was bare minimum. You know, it was looking behind my back to see what I'm doing or watching me, but not ever inquiring to me directly. It was not saying anything. It was, you know, saying they support me, or, you know, her saying she supports me and she accepts me, but then like, you know, there's a difference between saying something and doing it. There's a difference between saying something and then also feeling that same energy behind what you're saying, right? Somebody can say, oh my God, I'm so happy for you. Oh my God. But you can tell, right? When somebody's being fake with you, you can tell when, nah, something's just not right here. And so my life before with my mom was a fairy tale, because once I started being my own person, everything fell apart. And regardless of the decisions I made, I just don't feel like things should have felt that drastically different. If when I was younger, she claimed that we were best friends and we were so close and it was this and that. It's like, if it was genuine, it would have stayed regardless. And that's when I realized it was more conditional than unconditional. It was more traumatic than not traumatic. It was more self-interested than mutually beneficial. Now I am difficult and crazy. You know, I hate to say the word crazy, but that's the most common word used for people who others don't understand. People don't understand you, so they call you crazy. You're very emotional, so people call you crazy. They call you mentally unstable. They try to act like you're the problem because they don't understand you. And that's how I feel like my family, but also my mom acts. You know, it's something with me. It's a personal problem that I have. It's not a family issue that the family system created. It's a me problem. It's my mind. It's my trauma that just appeared out of nowhere, and I'm just the only one you know what I'm saying? They make it feel very alienating to be emotional, like I mentioned in the beginning, to have big emotions. And it's not because they're bad, it's because they simply don't understand them. They simply can't relate to it because they simply don't have the wherewithal. And not of their own, but again, generationally, right? The dysfunction, it carries out until somebody says, you know what, no. Until somebody takes all the pushback, which is what I'm getting and have been gotten from my mom, from my family, for being different, for stepping out, for saying the things, for speaking up. You know, it always becomes like, oh, you know, she doesn't know what she's talking about. That's not true. That never happened. With a real failure to seek to understand and open up to maybe it is true. Maybe you just feel so bad that you don't want to acknowledge it. Maybe you're just not open to seeing it. Maybe you don't want to see it, right? When people are afraid and insecure, you never realize the depth of emptiness they must be experiencing until you see the lengths of which they'll travel to hide. You never know how far people will go when they're trying to hide from themselves, when they're trying to hide from something. And that's why, like I mentioned in the first episode, discernment can be so important, because you never really know how far people will go, and they will go very far into projecting onto you, into projecting their pain, into giving you their pain through those projections, so that, you know, they don't have to deal with their own things. And it's very unfortunate, but a lot of people live this way. And that's been my role here in this life, right? To be subjected to it, transmute it, and then share it like I am now. Covert narcissism is tricky, but the signs and the subtleties never go away. You know, it may be simple and easy to spot a narcissist, right? It may be simple and easy to spot narcissism. But covert narcissism is a little bit more difficult because it's more subtle, right? It can be more subtle. It can be more easily explained. You know, you can't call it out as quickly and as clearly as narcissism. But the subtlety is the truth. It never goes away. And that's how you know it's real, because it never goes away. If something was false, it would switch up and you would be like, oh, okay, I was just in my head. Oh, okay, I was just wrong. You would see the clear distinction in, oh, right, okay, that was just a 1 or 2 time thing. But if it continues to happen, it's like you have to recognize that. We have to recognize that and be honest with ourselves about it. I think my mic might be dying. It's okay, I'm almost done. A cyclical unraveling takes place. You know, when you grieve, it's very cyclical. Back and forth, round and round, until you come to a place of acceptance. And here I say, you know, forcing me to find acceptance in what my ego feels unacceptable. Finds unacceptable and feels unacceptable. It's like our ego may feel that something is unacceptable. And that's why it's a cyclical unraveling, because it takes time for our egos to really open up to the truth and allow it to exist and learn to be okay with it, right? Instead of push against it. And so, though it may take you time to grieve, as I say here, there lies sparks of gratitude with a signature of permission. Give yourself permission to grieve endings. Give yourself permission to grieve the changes. Give yourself permission to look at things over and over and over again until you feel satisfied in a space of acceptance, in a space of okayness, in a space of reality. Because it does take time and it doesn't happen overnight. And I think a big thing with this whole thing for me and my mom and also my family has just been allowing myself to go through the process and just keep tuning into the truth and keep listening to God and keep recognizing what's real for me and standing by me. I think that's a big part as well. Trusting yourself and leaning into that, do that cyclical unraveling, and not giving up or giving in because they don't see it, or because just because 5 million people say one thing doesn't mean it's right. Just because people gang up on you and make you feel like what you're saying is wrong doesn't mean you're wrong. And I think that's where we can get messed up. So wolves, I thank you so much for joining me here on this second episode. And I appreciate you for watching and for tuning in. Remember to keep howling and honoring who you are. And I will always continue to create this space for us, for you, to do that. It requires bravery, it requires courage. And you may experience fear, because I'm experiencing fear speaking out. But courage is not the absence of fear. It's with fear. So I love you. And I'll see you on our next video.